There's a shadow on the wall of an angel come to call and remind me of what I've always known. She whispers in my ear words I can barely hear, but the meaning I can feel in my bones. There's a peace just outside my window. There's a war raging at my door.
อ่ะ